Hello, everybody. It's Candace Presley of Trinity Property Advisors. I am glad that you all are tuning in today. I have a special guest with me, my colleague, um, Mr. Dorien Couch. So, just a little background. Uh, we have a mutual friend and colleague that introduced us. And I have this saying that I found somewhere. It says, your net worth is only as good as your network. Okay. And this is true, has standard true, tested. So I want to introduce Dorien, and I'd like to just, encourage everyone. I'm very passionate about, increasing awareness for minorities in commercial real estate. So I just like to, do a kind of day in the life with you, Dorien, tell us how your career started in CRE, and I'll let you take it away.
Thank you, Candace. I appreciate the introduction, and that is true. Your net worth is only as big as your network, and it's funny you say that because I actually just had a call today with someone that I work with. I don't know, going back 15 years, and their name came up, and it's just kind of crazy where you just never forget who you work with and how you got there, and
That's right.
what roles that you could play for someone, and vice versa. So happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. So how did you get started in real estate or facilities? Tell us.
So it's funny. I mean, I actually started out at the Temple School for Planning, right?
Mhm.
And I was going back for my graduate degree because my undergrad was in sociology and I was doing like social work. So I was trying to go back and break into real estate and try to figure out really what area I wanted to be into or
Mhm.
go into. And I got offered this job to start traveling, doing site selection and front end acquisition for a franchise company, national franchise. So
Nice.
I had to stop the graduate program. And it's funny because I talked to one of my professors and he was like, you have the opportunity to see the world. Like you can come back and finish your degree every time, any
Yes.
right? So I started out traveling and I was going to all of these planning commissions, zoning offices, getting permittings and things like that. And I was meeting with the planners at the same time, interviewing them like, hey, like, how do you like your job? And to be honest, a lot of them were frustrated. It's very bureaucratic, and they didn't have the ability to really, think outside the box, for lack of better words. I mean, anything that they could do, they couldn't really bring that plan to fruition. So they said, you may want to consider real estate or development a little further, right? So
Mhm.
that being said, started, I continued working in that field. Um, Started expanding. I think I got my going back to school, got my graduate degree because at the time the economy had just tanked. And so I was kind of like, what better way to start learning about it? Just going back to school. So I went to University of Maryland, got my degree, master's in real estate. And
Nice.
I think once I graduated, we were back in another recession, right?
Mm.
But I had the opportunity to start working for a nonprofit development company over in New Jersey. And we did a bunch of uh, rehab loans, right? Like
Okay.
it's basically, I guess they put a lien on a property, and it was a forgivable lien, but it was broken out over like 10 years. And so I had the opportunity to not only figure out from the program side in terms of how to write some of those grants and funding opportunities, but also on the construction side, coming in and seeing the rehabs, but also really dealing with the customer and the client and understanding, their concerns and trying to give them little tools and techniques on how to improve their property. Um, and then from there, my next step was really real estate. I forget the title because it was a mix of everything. It was slash facility slash project management slash like front end permitting right away. It was with Pico, right? So I was a real
Okay.
Pico X line, and there my experience into like the unconventional areas of real estate
Mhm.
sort of like grew like right of ways and access and transmission distribution, like utilities, like all the non-sexy aspects of real estate. But even that opened a lot of doors in terms of like that huge industrial or what you call capital type projects, and working on several of those. And I did that for almost a decade, and it was really good. And it allowed me to learn a lot of other different aspects. And then from there, I left to explore opportunity with the school district as a capital projects manager. And I mean,
Nice.
and that was fun too. I think the
Mhm.
process was just a little bit slow in terms of having to go to board meetings and secure funding, and then fast forwarding your construction schedule over 3 months. But ultimately, that landed me in a role at Google where, I was a facilities manager. I actually relocated to Texas and then was a facilities manager in response for all of our Texas Google sites. And that was really
Wow, that's amazing.
so.
You hear that, Google guys? So, one reason why I love talking to people because there's so much more to real estate than just residential,
Right.
and that's where I started out. I started out in residential. I mean, I don't regret my path at all, but there's so much more, so many different types of properties and different
Mhm.
types of transactions.
Yeah.
So tell us now about Google. What's a day in the life like?
So a day in the life, I mean, in my previous role, right, was just more so on the operation side, making sure the building was running up to par. I mean, we were taking care of some of the things like parking and like food and things like that, all the aspects of how the end user would use that space. Where I'm actually in now is back on the project management side, where I'm building commercial office space for like the data centers. So that's an
Nice.
interesting role. It's like back in the project management, it's fast paced. You have this finite time where your end date and you need to hit that end date and turn that project over to the end user. So I mean,
Mhm.
it's a great experience. I would say, um, to your point in terms of like the residential and switching from the commercial, I think what I've done is to split from my day to day is try to pursue like other opportunities, like so my CCIM, my project management certificate, and
Yes, tell us about that.
exactly. Yeah. So for me, coming to working in the facility side, right? I was looking to figure out how I could transition onto back over to the project management side. And
Mhm.
coming from a non-traditional degree like an architect or engineer, like I was trying to bring another skill set, right? So I
Mm,
leveraged my experience, which at this point is close to 20 years, maybe a little over,
nice.
and then some extracurricular degrees. Like I mean, I had my real estate license in PA. I've done probably about 5 or 6 flips over the last 6 or 7 years. But for me, it was also about adding to that skill set, and that's why I decided to pursue my project management certificate.
Okay.
Because when I was looking for opportunities, that was always one of the requirements, right?
Mhm.
So I just put the time in, did the training, the coursework, submitted the application, and added that to my resume. But as well as having some stretch roles, like in my current role, right?
Mhm.
Oftentimes in facilities, we do small projects, sort of refreshes or building out conference rooms, and so those things add to your skill set, which you then can say, "Hey, I'm qualified to do this role." Um,
Well, Dorian, you're being modest, right? So yeah, you're being very modest. So I know you were a recipient for the CCIM
right, correct.
scholarship. So
Yep,
CCIM guys, is everyone who doesn't know is a highly recognized designation in commercial real estate, and they have a cultural diversity initiative. Again, on that, tip to increase the number of minorities in real estate. So you just got that in Texas, right?
absolutely, yeah,
All right.
and I appreciate you being one of the ones that wrote the recommendation letter for me. And
My pleasure.
obviously, the motivation there, really, I'm going to tell you what the motivation there was. One, so I also have my MBA, right? So
Mhm.
and I started throughout the years and in my current career, right? A lot of times, what we see on the residential side is just like, okay, how we flip, we do the rehabs. It's really visual, and I
Mhm.
don't know if a lot of people understand on the commercial side, like it really doesn't matter what most developers don't even look at the property. It's all numbers, right?
All about the numbers.
All about the numbers and how they work. So for me, immersing into that, understanding and exploring the numbers and the financial side and the investment side was really like the bulk of the importance for me, as well as the timeline on so the flips, right? You do one, you
Mhm.
can do two, you can do 10. It's the timeline. And for me, I thought the return on investment was a much more better use of your time in terms of opportunity from the commercial side. In addition to the fact that I had some personal stakes, like my wife's a chef, so I kind of wanted to get a multi-use building and have her one space and then offset those costs with the other projects, right?
Nice.
So it was kind of like a multitude of things, and I think everyone had that time off in 2020. So I just put the pen to the paper and said, "Hey, this is what I want to try to do." And I think finished. Like I'm finishing up my third class right now, and I'm
Okay.
finalizing my real estate license here in Texas, which is much more intense than Pennsylvania in terms of requirements. I think we're at like 180 hours.
Wow.
So I just finished that up, and I passed the national. So now I got to take the state and get that finalized. So I'm moving towards my end goal, and hopefully still continue with my day job, but also continue to push forward on the commercial real estate side.
That's awesome. That is amazing. So I just have some key takeaways from what you said and just want to get some closing thoughts. So it sounds like, resiliency is in your blood. You had some barriers there, the recessions and things like that. Sounds like you're a continuous learner like myself.
Mhm.
You got your MBA, you just got your PMP, and you're working towards your CCIM. You've got your construction management. These are some amazing tools. And I hope that you all, are taking note of, these are the keys to success. And any last closing thoughts you want to give, Dorian?
No, I mean, I would just say don't give up. You know what I mean? Like I said, I think for a lot of people really that want to break into this industry and come from a non-traditional background, whether that be, a minority or just not having the right degrees. Like I said, my undergrad was sociology. So I sort of had a upward battle in a sense that I didn't come from, a technical background. I didn't have that architecture, that engineering degree, but I wouldn't let that stop you, right? You got to just
Hmm.
figure out where it is you want to get to and sort of work your way backwards and figure out what it needs, what you need to get there. And so if you have to pursue a degree and you feel like it's going to cost you that time, well, pursue the degree part-time, but also continue to work on your goal. Just don't stop. So that's what I
Right.
would say, because I think you always need to think ahead, be forward thinking, but don't overwhelm yourself to the point that you don't do anything. Break it up into pieces and then just
Yes.
attack those pieces. So that's how I do it. And I mean, I
Awesome.
would say that's the blueprint.
Yeah, I agree with that. I believe in celebrating small victories. I do like, goal lists and task lists, and I get a joy in checking off, to
Yeah.
making something done. I
No,
totally enjoy that.
it's so funny that you said that because like I do that at the end of every year, right? Like you call it like
Hmm.
New Year's resolutions, and it's so
Right.
funny that I checked off like everything on my list. So that just means you got to create new goals. So it is really satisfying and enjoyable. When you said that,
Yes.
it just made me laugh because I think that's something that's important to do when you talk about a dream and then you write it down. It really becomes it brings it into fruition, and then when you
Yes.
get the opportunity to check it off, you're on to the next thing. And so
Yes.
that's really important, and it's funny that you.
Yes. Well, I thank you for joining me today, Dorian. And make sure you guys follow me at Commercial Candice on IG and on YouTube. And we will look forward to seeing you guys the next time. Thank you.
Thank you.